Darn, that Canadian again. But I brought a friend with me, Alex. So Alex runs our studio in Japan, so our industry studio doing some pretty amazing things. What we thought we would do is now go, it was brilliant to kind of look at Unity XR broadly, look at XR broadly. We thought we would actually do kind of a couple minutes of showing how we think of XR in the industrial space and a little bit of what we're doing. So when we imagine, here, I'll do that. So when we think of different examples, so we know Unity, we know from an XR perspective, gaming, entertainment, those are pretty easy use cases to think about what we do with them. But from an industrial perspective, I actually think it's actually got faster use cases for the use of XR, the use of VR. If we think of, whether it is a way to view a process, it's to view a product, and then collaborate on that, and we'll get into that one a little bit more. But first, what I wanted to do is get Alex is going to talk about kind of just the steps that he thinks about when developing from an XR perspective.
Thanks,
There you
Rory.
go. You're welcome.
Hi everybody, it's great to be here today. I'm sure many of you have not had the chance to actually touch the Apple Vision Pro. So first of all, I'd like to kind of describe, using the slide, some of the different application types that we can actually create for the device. So if we look up on the board behind me, start on the left-hand side, we have the more traditional 2D applications, and as we move to the right, we kind of increase the immersion. So we call this like the spectrum of immersion, if you will. So I'm going to try and step through these one by one, and if you kind of bear with me and kind of come with me on the explanation, I'll try and describe which one in turn. So we'll start with 2D applications. So if you imagine, for example, you've got an iPad application that you've developed with Unity. On the Apple Vision Pro, you'd actually see that in 3D space in front of you. There's a floating window. Now, on the Apple Vision Pro, you don't actually have tracked controllers like you would with like a HTC Vive or an Oculus Quest. You use your hands or your eyes to interact with the device. I think that's quite unique with the Apple Vision Pro, that they decided to use the primary input mechanism as your hands and your eyes. So moving on to the second image, again it's a plane floating in front of you, but this time the actual plane, the rendering contents of the plane has stereoscopic rendering. So if you've ever been to a movie theatre watching a 3D movie with glasses, or perhaps you have a TV at home that has a 3D mode, it's the same concept, but you have that 3D rendering in front of you on a 2D plane. So this would be great for watching 3D movies on the Apple Vision Pro. Now the third image takes that one step further and actually adds 3D elements around the 2D plane. So the example we have here is a football game, and we have 3D scoreboard rendered in as a 3D object around the plane with the score and extra information to give you updates about the match. And the fourth image up here is a new concept for the Apple Vision Pro. We actually have, if you can bear with me with the explanation, if you can imagine in front of me a cube, a 3D cube about a meter in size, and within that cube we have a 3D application. So let's say, for example, we have a smart city, a small city environment. And to my left we have another 3D cube with a bin viewer of a city, for example, and another one here of a building. So this is essentially the Apple Vision Pro's equivalent of multitasking. You can have multiple applications running, each in a cube, and you can move these cubes around and kind of set up your workspace depending on your use case. And moving on to the right-hand side, we have fully immersive. So this would be typically a single application running on the Apple Vision Pro. This could be a fully VR application. So for example, if you're porting a HTC Vive application, a Quest application that would be completely CG, that would be run in fully immersive mode. Or if you want to take advantage of the mixed reality features like pass-through, that would also be supported. And in the pass-through mode, you'd be mixing the physical space and obviously the virtual objects as well. So in terms of building these applications, obviously the Apple Vision Pro is not released yet, but the good news is you can actually start to build these applications today with Unity. So in terms of the windowed applications that I mentioned on the left-hand side of the slide before, We've already released Unity 2022 LTS version, which includes VisionOS as a build target with experimental support. So those, if you have a 2D application, for example, you've already built for iPad, you can install the 2022 LTS version, just enable the VisionOS as a build target, and it will compile for VisionOS. And you can actually test this with the Xcode VisionOS emulator, so you can see what it would look like on the Vision Pro. For the fully immersive VR applications, so again, if you have, for example, a HTC Vive application, a Quest application you'd like to port over to the Vision Pro, we have the VisionOS XR plugin. This is in a closed beta program. If you go to our website, there's details about how to sign up for that. And you can port those applications over to the Vision Pro. So this would be a 100% CG rendered application, no pass-through. And of course, on the Vive and the Quest, typically the applications use track controllers, so you'd have to consider how to port those over to use your hands and the eye tracking instead. And in the case of a mixed reality application, supporting pass-through, eye tracking, the extra features that we have on the Apple Vision Pro, we've actually developed a brand new solution called Unity PolySpatial. So this enables you to build applications that are native for the Apple Vision Pro, and in this case they contain a Unity runtime that handles the simulation, so the gameplay logic, physics and asset data. But the input, the AR data, the application data is actually handled by Reality Kit on the Apple side. And what this does, it allows you to take full advantage of all of the features of the Apple Vision Pro, but obviously you can still author this application in the Unity editor, which you're already familiar with. So I'm going to hand back to Rory now. You're going to take us through some industry use cases and some examples of what we can do in mixed reality, I think.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Or I hope so, anyway. So when we think of that, so when we think of the application, so when we think about, when you're thinking, you know, as Alex said, you've got multiple apps running. For us in our group, what we're doing is we believe that this is a variation of our viewer. So we think that the big part of that XR experience is really this idea of view, collaborate, iterate, and approve, right? So you're all in the space, you're viewing the asset, you're viewing the information about the asset, it's multi-app, and you're seeing it go through its process. So what I thought I would do is I just run through some examples in the different industries that we're plugging this view idea, this iterate, this collaborate. So everything for us is really about collaboration. So we believe that as we start to think about real-time 3D industry and we think about XR, it's really about a collaborative, creative process. So we think of the auto industry, we saw earlier Volvo, we saw the idea of creating a auto. Well, if you have your XR, you have your headset, you've got the design on one, you've got what people are saying on another app. So now the experience becomes immersive. When we think of designing products, it's the same idea. We're seeing teams all over the world as they start creating products. The biggest problem they have is really this idea of collaboration. So I can see my model, I can see the parts of the model, and we can start talking about it. You know, I designed my new Nike shoe, but I'm going to change the color of that live. So we can see the change and we can see what's going to go into that. The big one, the two next ones for me really kind of brings out, and some of it really kind of goes to what Nico was talking about from an AI perspective. And we really kind of bring together this idea of imagine, okay, I've got my tractor, but I've also in the next app, I've got my virtual salesperson that's actually running on Centus and Muse. They're running the animation, they're running AI, they sound real. They're telling me about that tractor. They're telling me not only, okay, now I bought it, now that same character can actually train me and teach me how to use it. And the big one also for us is really this idea of construction. And all of us know construction starts at a certain budget and then usually pretty much in the next day goes way over budget. And then when you get into kind of walking around and building, a lot of that has to do with the construction. So electrician or your steel worker or whatever it is, they don't actually have a connection to the model or the CAD model. So you think of running an app. So I'm walking around, I've got my headset, I've got the CAD model in the one app, I've got the detail of that, what's happening, the wiring harness in the next app. So we actually very quickly can start to see, oh, okay, I'm not cutting that wall down. Or, oh, I want the wiring harness to go here because other things are going on. So, and then finally for me is really this idea of training, this idea of the collaboration around things like surgery, right? So I've got a problem heart, I want to bring the model up, and then I want to start to move and talk about that with doctors around the world. So mostly that was for us. That was a thank you for listening to us. We hope that you have a great time today. Any number of us are going to talk about different things that we're doing more specifically in industries, and we really enjoy the opportunity to do that. And also thanks for having us in Korea and in Seoul, and have a good time today.